If you go too far into the void of darkness, you can lose your soul. And as balancing beings, we're supposed to be. Welcome back to another episode of Divinely Channeled Messages with Wu Wei Soul Guidance. I am your soul, Oracle Robyn, and I love you no matter what you do. To get started today, I know it's been a little while since we've sat down together, but hopefully you've been getting the shorts that I've been creating for your highest good. Hello, hello. Hey, hello, hello. 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 Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello. Hey, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hey, hello, hello. I think we should also celebrate that it is now October the 1st. So today is Wednesday, October the 1st, 2025. We're in spirits of harvest right now after a tough eclipse season, as well as a new moon in Libra. Today's meditation has been about letting virtue shine bright. And my actual channeled message aligns with that because on yesterday, I tried my hardest to start recording this message, but I just couldn't. And sometimes the divine gives me pieces of messages, and then I'm able to wrap up with that meditation and maybe get some more information to piece together for the purpose of presenting it to you guys. So I appreciate your patience, but know that I'm super, super intentional about how much information you all get, along with if the information is going to make sense as a whole. I've already cleared the energy. I'm really, really excited about this one. So we won't be using any tarot today. These are solely divinely channeled messages. If you're interested in me doing more tarot, please let me know. Having started the channel in August, it has been quite the experience to come in having a framework in mind and the Most High channeling through me what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. I've been guided every day, and I want to give all praises to the Most High. Thank you to my divine ancestors, my divine spirit guides, as well as the divine angels who continue to reflect in me what it is that I should be doing. Ashe? So, probably for the past 3 months, I've been interested in watching the movie Sinners. And I hadn't done that. My cousin and I have been talking about it, and she has continuously asked me if I had watched it. So I finally, was nudged enough to watch the movie that I turned it on the other night. I think it was Sunday? Yeah, today is Wednesday. I think it was Sunday night, maybe Monday night. But anyway, I never knew that I was going to get that much out of it. And during meditation, I was actually shown some of the movie, but not anything that was manufactured into the actual script. But I was taken to some scenes where the divine had been showing me that this movie was not just about vampires, but it's in fact about energy. As you all know, sometimes there are people in your world who sometimes show up like vampires. And I think it was really interesting in how they developed the characters, and specifically the main characters played by Michael B. Jordan alone were Stack and Smoke. Smoke and Stack are known to be Elijah and Elias. And their characters were originally raised in the Mississippi area that's depicted in the story. And they just so happened to return to Mississippi after being in Chicago, um, robbing people and scamming people out of their money after having been a part of World War I. So the story, as it picks up when they go to Mississippi, I believe it's Clarksdale, Mississippi, from Chicago. It was in 1932 after World War I. And Smoke, he is depicted in the story as someone who is more business oriented. Um, he seems to be very, very thoughtful, intentional. He's the oldest twin, and he also is wearing a blue hat. Um, Smoke seems to be in an energy where he's settling. And I mean that from a grounding perspective. He is rooted in his beliefs. He has a foundation that he believes in. He believes in, his own core values, the value of family, the value of sticking together, and also just showing up as this masculine figure who has experience. So he doesn't make hasty decisions. He shows up as more of the gold standard person as far as his temperament is concerned, but he's cutthroat, and he seems to have embodied more of the femininity or more feminine side as it relates to his thoughtfulness throughout the film. He's a dedicated person, very, very devout, while his brother Elias, also known as Stack, shows up as a depiction of what I would call the more masculine energy. He's actually wearing a red or a more burgundy type hat, which is deeply symbolic to me. Stack shows up as more of a fiery masculine energy with a mind to do things without as much thought. But he is known to be reliable enough to get something done, to get tasks done, and to follow the rules as best he can. Then there's their cousin Sammy, who is a part of the leading supporting actors in this film. And Sammy is the son of a sharecropper who is also a pastor there in town. And he's always looked up to and loved his cousins Smoke and Stack, and he respects them. Smoke tends to show up as more of the angelic side in this depiction. And it seems that Stack, the other twin, reflects into Sammy's life as more of the person who is in touch with aesthetics and things of the flesh, things that are more pleasurable and could, in fact, be depicted as someone who shows Sammy that it's okay to relish in temptation or certain obsessions related to the flesh. Smoke, he gives a different perspective in the sense that, yes, he's logical, he's curious about the supernatural, but because of what Smoke and Stack have gone through and the amount of responsibility that he's had throughout his life, it's not until nearly the end of the story that Smoke finally realizes that all along the supernatural world is real. There are two significant romantic relationships that are depicted in the story. And both of those relationships are that of the twins, Smoke and Stack. Smoke is actually with Annie, and Annie is a voluptuous, melanated woman who Smoke has had a long term relationship with, but she's originally from the bayous of Louisiana, and she practices in what I think is hoodoo. The other relationship that's depicted in this story is Stack's relationship with Mary, which at that point, when they start developing the character of Stack and Mary, Mary is already married to a Caucasian man um, somewhere in the South. And Stack actually pushed Mary to have this relationship because of the injustices that were occurring during the period of Jim Crow. And this was because Mary was a Caucasian and melanated woman or biracial woman, and she was passing. But in the community of melanated people or black people, she was accepted because of the one drop rule, which means that if you have a drop of blackness in you, you are considered black. But in that time, while she was accepted by our community, she wouldn't have been accepted in the Caucasian or the white community if they knew that she had even one drop of black blood. As the story goes on, of course, the vampires come into place or come into play, and there's a shakeup because everybody has to put their heads together about how to get rid of the problem. So, of course, vampires can't be killed by gunshots alone. So, Annie, the spiritual person who was rooted in her spirituality, believing and very confident in her spirituality, is approached with a problem that is going to take more than just shooting the vampires to kill them. But what I took from that was that Annie, having wanted Smoke to save her in the event of a vampire biting her, she knew that if she was not killed by a wooden stake going through her heart, being stabbed by a wooden stake through her heart, she knew that her soul would forever be lost. She had already been awakened to the gifts that she had, and she knew that her spirituality, as well as her energy being carried on into the next realm, was dependent on her state of being when she died. Earlier in the story, we learned that Smoke and Annie had a baby girl together that unfortunately died while she was still an infant. And Smoke, being as though you already know that he had curiosity about, his spirituality, he had gone through World War I. He had been a black man during the time of World War I, and he had already faced so many adversities that meeting Annie, he knew that it wasn't by coincidence that he had met Annie and that she would be a significant part of his life um, through the end of his life. So he kept in connection with her. But he had so much curiosity that I think that he actually believed that the divine was taking care of him. And there was this bag, a mojo bag, as they called it, that Annie had put together for his protection. And when Smoke got back to her house, he wondered why the magic didn't work on their baby. Then the relationship with Stack and Mary, I felt that Mary and Stack had a beautiful relationship, but because of the characteristics between both of them, Stack, of course, shows up as someone who is more enamored with the flesh. And he had met Mary when she was so young. They started to have a romantic relationship that was full of passion. But because of the odds against them, Stack had to continue to push Mary off of him. And by the time that they had gotten back to Clarksdale, Mississippi from Chicago, Mary's approach to him came across to me as if she had more so a selfish desire to be with Stack. And eventually, after she was bitten by a vampire, she seduced him, bit him, and was a part of his demise into becoming an immortal vampire. I think this film is about energy because not only are we seeing the duality of everything through the character's development, we're seeing divine masculinity and divine femininity in both Smoke and Stack. We're seeing the exploration of the material world and the spiritual world. And it's truly a beautiful story. But I think the Sinners movie is a representation of what could happen if we go in, if we go too far into the void of darkness. If you go too far into the void of darkness, you can lose your soul. And as balancing beings, we're supposed to be representative of the light and the dark. There are so many times that we show up in people's lives as both the light and the dark, but the universe honors balance. The vampires that were depicted in this movie, they were using divisiveness to draw people into the darkness. And I mean divisiveness in a sense that they were whistling, they were using language that would attract people, but their purpose and calling was not positive, but it was to wrap people into a web or wrap people into a cycle of accepting always being in the darkness. And I think that we have plenty of examples of energy vampires in our lives that resemble the vampires that were in the movie Sinners. It's funny that both Stack and Smoke had partners who were pretty extreme in their approach to life. I wanted to say living. They were pretty extreme in their approach to their ways of living. Um, Even though we only got short periods of time, with each one of the characters as they're developing it. I mean, the film is only 2 hours and 15 minutes. But based on inferences that were made by me, I can say coming into understanding the character of Mary, Stack had already told her to stay away from him. He had given the reason why he wanted to protect her. He wanted to keep his life and she wanted to keep hers. But everything that they went through was wrapped up in passion. It was a fiery, fiery, fiery energy that, if not balanced, chaos, negative chaos could occur. And with Annie and Smoke's relationship, Annie was constantly trying to get this person who was wrapped up in the logic to see the bigger picture, to not only ground himself, but to access his femininity in a sense of having emotions that sometimes don't equate to logic. When she asked, or when she answered his question about why the mojo bag worked on him for his protection, but it didn't work on their child. It wasn't that the magic did not work. It was that he had emotionally attached to the outcome of this baby having died, to everything being lost. But if you watch the movie all the way through, you find out that they all end up back together in divine order. Smoke, along with Annie and their child, they end up back together in perfect peace, in perfect harmony, together in their highest state of being. While unfortunately, Stack and Mary end up together forever in the land of the immortals, seemingly happy and making it work. Some of the things that I channeled on this particular subject were that of, if we go too far into the void of darkness, we are subject to lose our senses in the 3D and in the supernatural. So be very, very careful of energy vampires. Protect your own energy, protect not only your peace, but protect your sanity, protect your sensibility, keep your spiritual practice so divisiveness will not be the reason for you to become ravenous in nature like an energy vampire. Sammy's music was beautiful, but because the juke joint, look at the sun coming out even more for us. Because Sammy was in the middle and so inexperienced with the supernatural world because he had come up only having exposure to the Christian faith, he didn't realize the divisiveness that was being used against him by these vampires when they said that his music was the reason why all of this terror went on. That music was not the reason why the terror went on, but it did actually it acted as a tool. The music was a tool to convince Sammy that his music was conjuring up spirits. It was a tool to make him develop a belief that what he was doing was wrong in nature. Sammy's creation of music was one of the most beautiful things in that it helped people create more happiness there in the juke joint. It told a story. For weeks and weeks and weeks, I've been drawn to more high vibrational music, and I realized that my energy is affected in a more positive way if I'm listening to more high vibrational tones. And in this movie, the drunk man who had been through so many experiences and had lost most of his loved ones to death or to the chain gang, they had been imprisoned or incarcerated. He related that blues comes out of a place of grief. But those are the same sounds and the same tunes that people find a way to live through their traumatic experiences. Lots of blues music creates happiness, and the story is told of how somebody started from somewhere in the worst place, but they found a way out of that harmful place. So again, I think Sinners is a representation of what could happen if balancing beings go too far into the void of darkness. There are going to be times in your life where you're going to have to make a decision that people are not going to be privy to. And sometimes it's going to reflect in their life as something of darkness, and possibly because they don't understand it. But that doesn't mean that the universe doesn't honor the decision that you had to make. I think a lot of times people think that it's all love and light, and it's not. There are going to be times when people are going to think that you're loveless, even though you're walking in love. But you did what was best for you. And that is what is so compelling about the duality of both the twins, Smoke and Stack's stories, is that what worked for one didn't work for the other, and vice versa. Life ain't all bad, but it ain't all good either. As above, so below, as within, so without. At some point, both of these characters struck balance. But if you have a more vibrational path, expect to go to higher realms. If you have a lower vibrational path, expect to go to lower realms. That's where your energy will be carried to. So, as always, balancing beings, I love you no matter what you do. And we'll close it out. Thank you for another chance to express this divinely channeled set of messages from the divine. It's important to me that you know you are free. 'Cause I never wanna make you change for me, babe. Don't change, squirrel. Don't change, squirrel for me, babe. Don't change, squirrel for me, babe. I'll talk to you later. Peace.